Hello and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're talking about the Bitcoin Spot ETF and all of the hype surrounding it here in January of 2024. But as always, before we jump into the video, make sure you drop a like below, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and stay up to date on all of the latest Bitcoin and cryptocurrency content. So, without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. So, the Bitcoin Spot ETF has been a very hot topic for almost a decade now, but even more so in the past number of months as we've had a number of different institutions applying to sell a Bitcoin Spot ETF, and it's looking stronger than ever that it's going to be approved here in January of 2024. Whether it gets approved now in January or in the future, or in the very near future, I think is only an inevitability, and it's not a matter of if, but when it happens, in order to give exposure to institutional money coming into the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. And what we're going to look at today is, what does that mean for this ecosystem as a whole, and what kind of impact will it have, not just in the short term, but in the medium to long term as well. And I think as an overarching sentiment, it is extremely bullish for this industry, for Bitcoin itself, and for, a lot of the other blue chip cryptocurrencies in the space, and the potential for growth and the impact on the market over the next 12 months for the remainder of 2024 into 2025 would be huge if and when this gets approved. So what we're looking at here first is the gold chart. So this is obviously just the price of gold mapped out over the past 70 odd years or so. And the only reason we've brought this up is just to illustrate the impact of the gold spot ETF that happened in November 2004, when the spot gold ETF was approved, and the impact on the price from there obviously went somewhat parabolic, you could say, for an asset like gold between 2004 and the present day. So obviously in the period from kind of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to 2000, we had a large period of growth up until the 80s, and then a large amount of consolidation happening, and a bit of a bear market for a couple of decades here as the price continued to dwindle. And then, you could say it's coincidence, but I think not. When we have the introduction of the gold spot ETF in 2004, we see a dramatic price increase over the next 20 years, essentially, to the present day. So the ETF basically gives the opportunity for institutional money to flow into a new asset. So we saw this happening with gold, obviously, and this chart illustrates that. But in its most simplest terms, it gives institutional money, the likes of pensions, hedge funds, Roth IRAs, all of these kind of different investment vehicles that are managed by institutions to gain exposure to a new asset class. And when that happens with something like gold, or as it happened with real estate in the 80s and 90s and onwards, the institutional money begins to allocate, at first a very small amount of capital towards this new asset class, whether it's gold or real estate or hopefully now Bitcoin. And over time, the amount of capital that begins to flow into that new asset class begins to increase as those institutions diversify their portfolios for the millions and millions of clients that they are handling money for. So obviously the gold example is very interesting to think about in the context of Bitcoin, and how the introduction of this ETF can impact the price over the next 12 to 18 months. But it's also worth noting that this is not the the first spot Bitcoin ETF that we have on the horizon. Spot Bitcoin ETFs have already been approved in a number of different countries, and obviously these are the 8 largest, I think, at the moment that have spot Bitcoin ETF approval and have been operating for a number of years. And we can see the total assets by country mapped out here. So Canada being the current leader, followed by Germany, Jersey, and Switzerland, and then getting into the smaller countries from there in terms of capital allocation. But I think the US being the biggest market in the world, the US dollar being the world reserve currency, and the sheer size of the US capital market, the impact that this would have on the price over the next 12 to 24 months, if it gets approved in the next couple of days, would be astronomical, and definitely something that could help spur and usher in the next kind of bull run that we're going to see in the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin space. So, obviously this is something, obviously the United States is only one country, and we sometimes forget that when the US is such a central and integral part of the global financial system. It is only one country at the end of the day, but it's an extremely large and powerful country. So I think all eyes are on the Bitcoin Spot ETF in the US at the moment, and a lot of interest in the companies that are filing to get approved for the ETF. So this table is just breaking down a number of the main issuers who have applied for the Spot Bitcoin ETF, and the likes of BlackRock, Bitwise, ARK Invest, VanEck, Fidelity. We've got a lot of large names here in the arena, and I think BlackRock in particular have only ever had one ETF application rejected out of, I don't know how many, but it's an extremely low percentage that they've ever had rejected when it comes to ETF applications. So a lot of positive sentiment at the moment about this definitely getting approved. A lot of people saying 95 to 100% probability in the next couple of days. We're currently sitting on January 9th, 2024, and thinking about the approvals happening by January 10th. As we can see, the final deadline for some of these applications is listed at January 10th, and a lot of people expecting that the approval confirmation will come for one and or multiple of these applicants by the 10th of January, which is tomorrow at the time of recording this video. So a lot of interest, a lot of bullish sentiment, and a lot of the price action in the past couple of weeks with Bitcoin going from 40 to 45K. A lot of people are attributing this to the onset of these ETF applications getting approved in the coming days. So, there's also a lot of speculation about how much capital will flow into Bitcoin as a result of the ETF approvals. We have some estimates saying, between 50 and $100 billion worth of inflows in 2024 alone. Other estimates on the lower end are saying maybe between 10 to 15 billion. So, it's definitely hard to give an exact figure, but as per the sentiment we mentioned a few minutes ago, institutional money will start to allocate a very small percentage of their portfolios to Bitcoin and this new asset class, maybe starting off at 1/4 or 0.5% or less than 1%, and then over the coming years build that up to a point where maybe 5, 6, 7% of those portfolios are allocated to Bitcoin and other similar blue chip digital assets. So, whether we get 50, 100 billion in 2024, maybe we do, and that will obviously have an impact on the price. But I think the overarching sentiment here and the macro outlook is to just understand how bullish this is in terms of a regulatory, in terms of regulatory approval and bringing more institutional money into the space and legitimizing Bitcoin and Ethereum and other blue chip cryptocurrencies as an asset class that is here to stay and that is worth your investment and worth the money. Because, as we looked at in some of our other videos, you can check them out on the channel, Bitcoin being the hardest asset that potentially has ever existed, and the performance of Bitcoin versus monetary expansion as the dollar continues to get printed ad infinitum is super interesting to visualize when you see the performance and the ROI of it versus other stocks, indexes, and other assets. So it's finally coming around to the fact that Bitcoin is an option. It is here to stay, and it is worth the investment for a lot of these institutions. So again, just illustrating the impact here with the line in the sand from the gold ETF and the impact it has on the price action, and thinking about where we could go from here with Bitcoin. In general, I think the macro outlook is extremely bullish. It's a very positive sentiment for the space in general, and it'll be super interesting to see how this plays out over the coming months. So, as always, if you enjoy these videos, please drop a like below, hit the notifications icon, and subscribe to the channel. It's really helpful for the algorithm if you like receiving these videos, and it helps to spread the word about everything to do with Bitcoin and crypto. So keep in the loop, subscribe below, and we'll see you in the next video.